Across planet internet, self-appointed scientists are filming outrageous acts of science. These internet heroes are doing bizarre experiments, making extraordinary inventions, and creating amazing scientific stunts. We've gathered a team of top science brains to analyze just how they do it, why they do it, and choose the very best. It's science, but not as you know it. So stand back and don't even think about trying this at home. We mean that. This is Outrageous Acts of Science, the People's Vote, where you choose your all-time favorite clips.
The best videos are when science and stupidity all come together.
Usually our team of top brains fight to get their favorite clips in the #1 spot.
It just catches your attention. It's exciting. Your adrenaline is rushing.
But now they've chosen to give you the power to choose.
It's putting science back in the hands of the people. They just need to have the right hands.
But which clips have you judged worthy of a prestigious spot in our countdown?
This is epic science with a side of science.
This is whoa squared. So buckle up and return your tray table to the full upright position as the countdown begins. And where better to start than with your favorite zombie killer?
I want to reassure our viewers that no beer was harmed in the making of this video. We respect beer.
So much so that they lovingly replaced the beer in these 24 cans with water before experimentation began.
In slow-mo, seeing it cut through can after can after can, that was pretty cool.
Max MacArthur is a self-taught swordsmith, making weapons that increase your odds of surviving a zombie apocalypse.
We were hanging out in a sword shop, and the idea came up, hey, why don't we make swords specifically geared for the zombie apocalypse?
Max's online video demonstrates his newly made samurai sword. So what is it about Max's sword that lets him cut through beer cans like butter?
The cans are shaped like a cylinder. As the blade comes in, the initial point of contact is tiny. Therefore, you have this massive force hitting at a very focused point, so the pressure is enormous.
So it needs to be moving very quickly, and it needs to be very sharp. And he has to do this can after can after can, so the blade needs to be heavy as well to continue the momentum.
At number 19, a firework display that really got you voted.
This is a festival going on in my country of Mexico, from the village of San Juan de la Vega, and it goes on every Tuesday before Lent.
This explosive festival combines Mexican men, fireworks, and sledgehammers. But the real star of the show is former local boy David Guadiana, who's pushing the firework to sledgehammer ratio to the scientific max. So how does he create this epic explosion without matches?
Normally, you would use a lighter or a match that would light a fuse. They're not doing that. What they're using is a touch-sensitive explosive. As he smashes the hammer down, the whack causes the chemicals to grind together. Now, if you imagine rubbing your hands together, you can feel them getting warm. And this is what happens with these chemicals, and this is the heat source that then sets off the explosive part of the firework. Rather than having to react with oxygen that's in the air, they've already got the oxygen mixed in with all of the fuel. And this means that when they get the heat source, all the chemicals are already mixed and ready to just go off, taking David with them.
Okay, but what's responsible for David's airborne excursion?
That was Newton's law.
For every action, there has to be a reaction. So you have these gases blowing out, and instantly there's a reaction on the hammer to throw it back. Same way rockets work. If gas is going out, rocket goes up.
From flying hammers to flying rushes, the people in this next clip use an airbag to propel themselves into your number 18 spot.
This clip had a lot. It starts off with a load of drunk Russians and finishes with an injured man.
Usually what happens is you're in an emergency situation and you use an airbag. He's used an airbag and now he's in an emergency situation.
Well, despite appearances, our airborne participant was completely okay.
The reason that airbags can create this much force this quickly is because they contain a chemical called sodium azide. Sodium azide is 1 sodium atom and 3 nitrogen atoms. Now, that's quite an unstable arrangement, so you only need to apply just a little bit of detonation, and all of those nitrogen atoms are going to come flying off, forming nitrogen gas. And that's what ends up generating the force, is this rapid expansion of gas underneath this guy that shoots him up towards the ceiling.
Here at Outrageous Acts of Science, we've assembled the world's best minds to find science in every corner of the internet.
Madness is inevitable.
Weirdo.
They spend hours looking for clips that meet their exacting criteria.
Destroy something, but destroy it in the name of science.
But for this show, we've completely ignored what they think. So let's continue on with your number 17.
When I first saw this clip, I thought, wow. Yeah, I was probably impressed a little bit.
Not just moonwalking, but super moonwalking straight into the countdown. It's Eric Nash from Santa Monica. You were so impressed with his moves, you voted him into the number 17 spot. So he's back for an encore.
What's this guy doing? How is he doing it? How is he actually moving backwards so quickly?
But before we look at the super moonwalk, let's look at the original moonwalk.
You need to know how you're distributing your weight at all times. When you go forward, the reason you can lift your foot is because all your weight is on the other foot. When you want to do moonwalking backwards, you do the illusion of making it look like you're lifting a foot, but you have your weight on it so that the other foot can be slid backwards, then you shift it.
Okay, good, but how do you do the super moonwalk?
He's physically throwing himself backwards with a lot of force, and that's going to build up because there's nothing really to slow him down. His foot is sliding along.
I actually slide my entire leg by having one leg up and thrusting all my body weight backwards and up like this.
In effect, he's actually ice skating in reverse, which is probably more difficult. It doesn't sound as cool, but scientifically and physically, it's actually far more demanding.
Okay, that's the physics, but he still looks like he's going forward. How is he doing that?
Most of what he's doing, the way he moves his arms, the way he moves all his body actually, is designed to fool us that he's going forward. He looked like he was running through a bus, but he was going the opposite direction.
And as Eric takes many large steps for man, we take one giant leap forward. And welcome back, Vaiva Matsukuji. Here she is staring over the 165-foot edge of a building in Russia, thanks to you, the people, and your swing vote.
Looks like fun, man. This would be great.
Yeah, this may look insane, and it is. But as always, our experts are quick to spot some sound science.
She's a bob on the pendulum. And you can imagine that if she's attached to a rope here and she drops straight down, bad result. But if you take that rope and you make it taut and you let her go, she follows this gentle arc.
Even if you start the swing of a pendulum slightly off, as she was thrown from the side of a building, it will very soon follow the right path. And that means it's actually pretty safe, so tie me up, throw me off a building. Go for it.
Yeah, no. So far, you've voted for internet heroes that wield high-pressure swords, swing from life-saving pendulums, and master momentum-shifting moonwalks. But join us after the break as we delve deeper into your favorite clips on Outrageous Acts of Science, the People's Vote. Welcome back to Outrageous Acts of Science, the People's Vote. The internet, where science stunts are only outnumbered by videos of cute animals. But instead of one of the numerous cat flip videos, you somehow chose a duck. We can't resist when science and nature combine their forces. And at number 15, Luke from Michigan found nature calling him. And you voted for the clip.
As a man, my reaction to this clip is, oh, it's so cute! The duck is just running his little feet. He's goes, I love it. Oh, it's cute.
Okay, pull yourself together, Adam, and tell us why this little duck is following Luke.
This is an example of something called imprinting. There are a lot of walking birds that will imprint within the first 24 hours of life. Imprinting is actually a survival instinct. So it sees something that looks large and protective and follows that thing.
And that's what's happened here. The first thing this duckling has seen is him. He is now effectively that duckling's mother. This guy in the video is doomed to a life of being duck parent. That bond that happens in the imprinting process lasts for a lifetime.
This guy's going to go on a date at some point, and he's going to have to explain the duck. I'm sorry, it's imprinted on me.
There has been research to show that they will imprint upon inanimate objects, anything from a ball to a pair of Wellington boots.
I actually don't know whether the duck is imprinted on the man or on his sneakers. That is a possibility.
Carrying on with our internet safari, you've confirmed that dogs really are man's best friend, so long as they can ride a bike.
It's like there is a little person inside a little dog outfit. I find it a bit weird.
We asked Norman, who's a French sheepdog, what his human taught him. But he's a dog, so scientists, over to you.
The dog has learned how to do this step by step. And what happens is the dog will have been taught to do the first thing. Maybe just hop on that bike. And we'll get a positive reinforcement. Some food treats or some love. And this is how dogs are trained. This is how they learn to do tricks. Good boy.
And that's what scientists call operant conditioning. But that's not the only thing you can do. Thanks to Kieran's training, he's able to ride a scooter and play the piano. Yeah, maybe with a little more practice. From one top dog to another, it's Professor Splash, who lands at number 13. When it comes to making waves, this is the clip people love.
Marvel that he made the landing. Amazing.
He pulled it off. He jumped into water only 12 inches deep, and he survived. Amazing.
The prop stunt is enormously dangerous. So how did a belly flop save him from shattering every bone in his body?
There is some ingenious physics at work to help protect Professor Splash's life. He's very cleverly making sure when he hits the water, he's got as big a surface area as possible so he can spread out that force over the biggest area, reducing the pressure on any one part of his body. And he's got this 30 centimeters of water, which is actually going to slow him down. So instead of decelerating instantly into concrete, he has 30 centimeters of transferring his momentum to the water, which is hopefully enough that he slowed down enough to not die.
So, by knowing his physics, Professor Splash lived to dive another day. But believe us, that belly flop had to hurt.
I have been injured. I've had neck, I've broken teeth, broke my jaw, I've been knocked out 4 times, but it's going to hurt for a minute, but the bliss on the bottom of the pool is 10,000 joys.
To even be considered for a spot in the people's vote, you gotta think big. And thinking big doesn't come any more massive than this. Riding into your number 12 spot, it's British inventor Colin Furze and his homemade Wall of Death.
I actually made a world's biggest bonfire, and I had some wood left over.
So Colin took the wood and spent 4 months building the 8th wonder of the world, Stanford's first ever Wall of Death.
This is what you call a real homemade wall of death, because it looks homemade and it can kill you.
So how did Colin plan to cheat death? Well, with an old pizza delivery bike, obviously.
To keep stuck to this wall, he's got 2 things he needs to worry about. One is actually being stuck to the wall, and so there's some friction between his tires and the wall of death. For you to have any kind of grip, you've got to be pushing those tires against the wall, and thankfully that's provided by the fact that as he's going around and curving, he's changing his momentum, and the bike wants to keep going straight and is pressed against the wall. He's also got to stop from just kind of tipping down, because it's all well and good to have the tires with grip, but if the bike angles down, he's in the death zone. So to avoid that, he's actually got to work pretty hard to not only stay going fast enough, but to keep the bike balanced up the correct way.
And Colin's first attempt entered the death zone almost immediately. Falling off the first time posed the question, was Colin attempting the impossible?
Speed is actually your friend, because the faster you go,
the more you'll be stuck to the wall. This wall of death is approximately 9 meters, and if you work through the equations, you'll figure out that you need to go at least 24 kilometers per hour. So probably with a pizza bike, you can probably pull this off. That's pretty impressive.
With physics on his side, Colin dusted himself off and got back in the saddle.
There's like this moment where your kind of body like adjusts. It's kind of like, you know, it's nearly like you're riding a continuous world, I suppose, of plywood. You know, everyone's saying you'll never do it on that bike, so actually to master it, it's like proper awesome.
Stick around for more of the People's Choice on Outrageous Acts of Science. Welcome back to Outrageous Acts of Science. Behold, Architect. A group from Austin, Texas, who fire lightning bolts in the ultimate display of science. They shot their way into your countdown at number 11.
It is a match made in heaven to combine Tesla coils, large bolts of lightning, and rock and roll music.
Yeah, it's an amazing show, but don't get too close. Each Tesla coil is capable of producing 500,000 volts of electricity, enough to give you a very nasty shock.
The Tesla coils look dangerous, and they are dangerous, actually.
In order to stay safe, these guys are wearing Faraday cage suits. These suits are metal mesh that surrounds their entire body. And you see the lightning trying to find the shortest path to ground. And when he's up on that box, you see the lightning going into his suit, coursing through his suit, coming out the bottom of his feet, and making its way to the ground.
Yes, Architect are rocking around 1,000,000 volts of electricity with just a few steel threads to protect them.
If they weren't wearing the suit, it would pass through their body and it would interfere with their nerves and muscles, and they'd go into sort of spasm and become electrocuted. But because electricity protects the path of least resistance, it happily dances through the chainmail suit and earths itself that way.
But just what is it like to be a rock god, channeling electricity?
It's cold. It's kind of like wearing a cold toilet seat.
We're halfway through our countdown of your biggest hits. We've seen G-force cause a gigantic splash, Tesla coil-induced shock and roll, and angular momentum on a wall of death. But as we enter into your top 10, this next clip takes pinpoint accuracy to a whole new level. This is Shifushi Yanshu, who studied to be a Shaolin monk since the age of 6. He's about to mess with your head, so watch carefully. Why, yes, you have just seen a man throw a needle through a pane of glass and burst a balloon.
Is this real or is this magic?
So puzzling, it's so impressive.
We just had to see this for ourselves, so we dropped by with an ultra-high-speed camera to film an ultra-high-speed monk.
用这个针穿玻璃的时候，你的脑子一定要心平气和。
That's the philosophy, but let's see it in action. With the normal camera, it's impossible to see what's going on, so we brought a high-speed camera. And there it is, the needle rocketing through the glass and out the other side. Amazing.
Yes!
But how on earth does he do that?
He's doing it at 150 kilometers an hour. That's nearly 100 miles an hour. That's how fast it leaves his hand. To get through the glass, you need a really, really big pressure. And pressure is force divided by area. We know he's got immense force with that needle. We also know the area is tiny. That means he's creating this huge pressure. And that is enough to burst through the glass and out the other side. It's incredible.
And why doesn't the glass shatter?
Glass, despite all appearances, is not actually a normal solid. It's what's called an amorphous solid. And this means that when it gets hit by a needle, it doesn't immediately transfer that force across the whole plane. It means it can be focused and stay quite localized.
And if you're thinking of trying this at home, don't. It took Shifushi Yanshu 15 years of practice.
As party tricks go, that one wipes the floor.
So far from Outrageous Acts of Science's smorgasbord, you've chosen conditioned bicycle riding canines, nitrogen-induced airbag narcosis, and frictional fireworks with a major kick. But But stay with us as we get closer to the people's ultimate #1 outrageous act of science. You're watching Outrageous Acts of Science, the People's Vote, an action-packed romp through your top-rated internet science clips. Next up, world champion anvil shooter Gay Wilkinson, who you launched into the #9 spot. We caught up with this metal-mad Missourian as he was preparing to get some anvils airborne.
This is really cool and incredibly dangerous.
I was completely unaware that this is what people are doing for fun these days.
And there's no failure to launch when Gay's in control.
They talk about the joy of sex, but it don't last like the fun of shooting anvils.
By sealing gunpowder between 2 anvils and lighting the fuse, Gay can do this.
That's exhilarating. That's stimulating. I feel the very same way today as I did the very first time I shot it. You smell the powder, you see the flash, you hear the deafening sound. It's almost too much information to process. It's only afterward you think, I'd like to watch it again in slow motion because there's too much to take in.
Happy to oblige. But ever wonder how gunpowder shoots 120 pounds of solid steel skywards?
There's 3 things that are going on here. First is that you're generating a lot of gas. The second is you're generating it really, really quickly. And the third is that there's a very good seal in between the 2 anvils which prevents it escaping.
This is Acme Anvil Sealant, and this is actually peanut butter.
Using peanut butter as a super sealant, Gay gives the explosive gas a split second extra to ensure maximum thrust. But why does the anvil go straight up?
We've got Newton's 3rd law at play here, and that is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Now, that gunpowder, when it's lit, produces gases, and they try and shoot out in every different direction. Now, they can't push the Earth. It's too massive. The only thing that's got to give in this system is the anvil. So what happens, instead of the Earth moving, the anvil shoots far up into the air.
This is a 120-pound lump of metal falling from 17 stories up, as fast as a car on the freeway. Don't try this at home. Now, maybe it was the bulletproof science that got you voting for this next clip. Or was it seeing the boss stare down the barrel of a gun? Either way, this Texas clip takes us back to #8. Trent's a head honcho at a firm that makes armored cars.
These vehicles are going to politicians, businessmen, celebrities, and we've even armored them for the Pope.
One day, Trent got tired of people asking him if the glass he makes for vehicles is really bulletproof. So he decided to prove it. On camera.
Today, I will redefine what it means to stand behind my product.
Today, I get to shoot my boss. Don't try this at home.
Wow, that is standing behind your product.
The only time I'd had a little bit of fear enter my body was actually looking at the shooter, and the shooter's eyes got really big. So that's the only time I actually felt a little bit nervous.
Shooting at my boss was actually pretty interesting. I bet there's a lot of people who would like to do it, but I like my boss. He's pretty cool, so I'm glad he's okay.
Yes, Trent lived to tell the tale. But exactly how did that windshield save his skin?
The way you make glass absorb the energy is that you have to make laminated glass. So you'll have a layer of glass, and then you'll have a layer of a material called polycarbonate. And then you'll have another layer of glass, and another layer of polycarbonate, and then so on and so on and so on to make a thick window.
This is a composite. And composites are used when you want the properties of 2 different materials. You want to put them together for different purposes. If you were to just have a thin piece of plastic, a bullet would easily penetrate that. If you just have a piece of glass, the bullet would cause it to completely shatter. You put those together, and the glass disperses that force of that bullet over a larger area. And then the plastic can absorb that force.
So thanks to the glass, Trent dodged not 1 but 3 bullets from a lethal semi-automatic rifle.
Holy crap.
Here at Outrageous Acts of Science, we love it when the web gets extreme. From extremely loud to the extremely painful. Extreme weather, explosions, and weirdness are all welcome. But most of all, we love it when the internet gets extremely hot. And as this next clip demonstrates, so do you. When Jeff Mackley traveled to the volcanic islands of Vanuatu, he made it his mission to climb inside an active volcano. The extreme adventurer waited 2 months for the right conditions to make his descent to the 100-foot ledge of this lava lake.
The weather is horrendous, pretty much all the time. Everything up there is slowly trying to kill you.
When the opportunity finally presented itself, Jeff took a deep breath and started the abseil down.
The fear bit came from abseiling down a 1,200-foot cliff that was falling to bits around me.
His first attempt lasted just 6 seconds before he was driven back by the extreme heat.
It was like a hurricane of hot air, and it pretty much felt like I had my hand in an oven.
Well, the heat that he's got to withstand is somewhere between about 700 and 1,200 degrees centigrade, right? Which is, to be more accurate, absolutely boiling.
Jeff's solution is a homemade suit that offers him enough protection to fulfill his lifelong dream.
When you do see a suit, that's when you actually start to appreciate the handcrafted nature of his attire.
This is an aluminized fabric. This suit was made in the garage of a farm in the South Island of New Zealand.
By deflecting radiant energy from the lava, Jeff's uber-cool suit protects him from the phenomenal heat.
It looks like all of my wildest dreams.
The bit where Jeff is standing in his suit on the lip of an exploding volcano, it just looks spectacular.
Without the heat suit and the breathing apparatus, you could look over the edge for about 6 seconds. With the breathing apparatus, I had 40 minutes of air, and I used every bit of it.
But does Jeff also need an air tank to go with his heat-reflecting suit?
There's a whole host of gases that are being given off here. First, we've got just simple steam, which may not sound like it's too bad, but if you breathe it in, it can cause you intense lung damage. On top of that, we've got sulfur dioxide and sulfur trioxide, which will dissolve in your lungs and create acid that will burn your lungs. On top of that, we've also got hydrogen sulfide, which is toxic. We've got carbon monoxide, which is a poison, and we've also got carbon dioxide, which can suffocate you.
Thank God for people like Jeff. If only to get these amazing shots, you know, where would we be without these crazy, brave New Zealanders?
After the break, more of the People's Choice on Outrageous Acts of Science. Welcome back to Outrageous Acts of Science. At number 6 in our countdown, be sure to set your phasers to stun for Scott Stevenson's world record attempt at destroying 100 balloons.
It paused for quite a while on that last balloon. Is it gonna go? Yes! Victory for lasers.
We track Scott down in his underground lair in Paris, France. Playing with lasers can be very dangerous, so he needs a safe house.
I really wanted to do something that I'd never done before. So I took a laser and I positioned it at one end and I put a balloon at the other end, and I saw if I could pop the balloon, I could probably pop them all. My goal was to start it and let it do its thing.
The laser is heating up the surface of the balloons, and so the molecular bonds inside the rubber are starting to loosen up because of the heat that moves the molecules around, until the bonds are not strong enough to hold the rubber together, and then boom, it pops.
So the laser isn't penetrating the balloon, just heating the surface. But how can a beam of light make it all the way to the 100th balloon and still maintain its popping power?
So lasers are created when you excite an atom with a voltage. The electron releases a photon, and when these photons bounce back and forth between two mirrors, they actually help create this laser as the light becomes more and more focused every time it bounces back and forth. A laser doesn't have more power than a light bulb. The only difference is the laser power is extremely concentrated.
And that's why you can keep a laser going for a lot longer distances than you can white light.
And on that note, we leave Scott working on his next internet hit, Laser versus 100 pieces of touch paper. That should spark some interest.
Since the dawn of science, people have been putting themselves in the middle of it as the guinea pig. And that's what I want to see.
And apparently, so did you. This is Alexander Rieker from Bad Homburg, Germany, who's about to attach himself to a train using a special suction cup designed to transport glass on the outside of trains.
The last thing I expected him to do is to attach himself to the back of the train.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is train surfing. It's insanely dangerous, and it's your number 5 choice.
These are high high-speed trains. This is really dangerous. If this guy falls off, it could be night-night.
Fortunately, Alex lived to tell the tale. So we traveled to Germany to ask him what inspired the idea.
I have talked with a lot of people about it, and every one of them was saying, that's impossible, you can't do it. The modern trains are not built to surf. They had the idea with that suction pad, which is designed to transport glass.
Yes, these aren't special German train surfing suction cups. So how are they keeping Alex from falling off a train capable of 205-mile-an-hour speeds?
They're just big suckers, really. And what they do, they suck over the top, and then he pumps, first of all. And that pumping that he's doing is removing the air from inside this sucker, which creates a vacuum.
When he sucks the vacuum, there's much less air pressure out. So now you have all of the weight of the atmosphere pushing down on this disc. And so you think that it's the atmosphere that's going to pull him off because of the wind resistance. But what really is happening is that it's the atmosphere that's holding him on.
The handle itself needs to overcome a couple forces. One, the weight of his body, and two, the force that the train produces when it accelerates forward.
Provided the air pressure, the weight of the air on that suction pad is more than he is, he's going to be okay, assuming the suction pad stays good.
Alexander's train surfing video made a giant splash on the internet, clocking over 6 million views. But how close to disaster did he come?
Like any other extreme sport, a small probability that you die is always there, but it's worth it.
This is something I never really thought I would see.
When it comes to strange science, you simply can't get enough. So, if the internet is a petri dish growing the weird, then we're the microscope examining the freaky.
It doesn't look normal.
Your next choice is not one for the squeamish. As armed with salt, Alex Tichy is about to raise the dead.
Wow, they are really going.
The way those muscles were moving, that really freaked me out.
Oh, that's pretty bad, man.
It looks very unreal.
Don't panic, these frogs have most definitely croaked. So, how on earth are they dancing from beyond the grave?
If you die, you've got lots of cells in you that'll be around for weeks to come. It's the same thing with these frogs. You have living cells still attached to workable machinery. So if you can fool those cells into thinking that they need to move, they will actually start to move and flex and do what cells do.
What especially impressed our experts is how an everyday kitchen condiment creates a sight that's hard to forget.
In this case, you can fake the signal that the brain is sending. You can use salt, which has positively charged sodium ions, which is exactly what tells the nerves when to fire. And so that gets into the nerve cells, they tell the muscle cells to contract, and you can make the frog dance.
Oh, that's pretty.
No way, I don't want to watch it again.
On a scale of 1 to disturbing, this is right out there.
Yes, it is disturbing. But you voted for it, so don't blame us. After the break, we'll come face to face with your final three and reveal who you've crowned as the people's favorite when Outrageous Acts of Science returns. So far on Outrageous Acts of Science, the people's vote, you've chosen Big Bangs, demanded determined ducklings, and shouted for shocking science. But this next clip clearly blew your mind as well as your ears. This is Steve Mead from Sacramento, California. He's got a thing for building car stereos. The bigger, the better. And if you don't believe us, then watch this. Steve's awesome custom-built 20,000-watt sound system can generate up to 156 decibels, which is louder than a jet engine.
It takes your breath away. It rattles your eyeballs inside your head.
There's no doubt that Steve's monster stereo is loud. But how can sound shake windows?
So you might not think that sound is very powerful, but it is still a way of transferring energy. So the speaker cones will hit molecules of air, they will hit other molecules of air, and they will transfer what is quite a large amount of kinetic energy from molecule to molecule, and all of that energy has to go somewhere. And if there's a window in the way, it will hit that window, and all of that energy will be transferred.
But rattling window panes is child's play for Steve's 20,000-watt wall of sound. It can shred a phone book, turn chips to dust, and make his wife's hair stand on end. Literally. There's something very fishy going on in this countdown, and it smells bad. For some reason, you wanted to relive Jeffrey Smith's Swedish fish nightmare so much, it made it to number 2. Yes, that's right. This is your second helping of surströmming, a delicious delicacy of putrefied herring that comes in a can.
Oh, no.
Yummy.
There is, in fact, a Japanese scientist that has published this as the most foul-smelling food that exists on the planet.
When Jeffrey met surströmming, it wasn't love at first sight. Or taste.
My body's telling me, don't put this in your mouth.
This dish is prepared by taking herring, adding just enough salt so that it doesn't rot, then locking the fish away in a can, where the haloanaerobium bacteria ripens the fish. Now, this leads to the formation of a variety of organic acids which smell awful. You've got propionic acid, which has a very pungent smell. You've got butyric acid, which smells like off milk or rancid butter.
It's pungent. It's strong.
On top of that, you've also got acetic acid, which smells of vinegar.
It smells like rotten onions mixed with burning tire.
On top of that, you've also got hydrogen sulfide, which smells like rotten eggs.
There's fish in it.
And on top of that, you've got fish, which goes on to add to the whole bouquet of dish.
It's a big piece. A big fillet.
It's used more as a spice rather than the entire dish, as this guy is doing it.
So Swedes use it only as a condiment. No one eats it whole, Jeff. But why are we programmed to react in such an extreme way to a harmless dead herring?
The body is saying, I don't like the smell of that, I don't like the look of that, I don't like the texture of it, and it does everything in its power to eliminate that from the body. In this case, quite violently, throwing up.
My stomach's gurgling. It's coming back up real soon.
Across 2 seasons, our team of top science brains have fought it out to get their favorite clips to number 1. We've seen red-hot lava action, gravity at work, and I don't even know what that was, but this is your countdown, packed full of your favorite clips. So who have you crowned as the people's champion? Who has harnessed both the power of the internet and the forces of science to entertain us?
The reason I got into engineering was to do things exactly like this.
Cue the dramatic music and strap yourselves in as we reveal your all-time favorite clip. Yes, it's just another day in the south of the Netherlands, where some of its citizens do odd things to cars. And looking at this bunch of Dutch engineering mavericks, no one else deserves to be your favorite clip more. The entire internet to emerge as your champion. It's 29-year-old Milo Lyman.
We meet with friends over here, and we have old cars, and we have a welder, an angle grinder, and most of the time something comes out.
For example,
over here you can see our seesaw car. We built this thing for a bathtub race.
But one day something came out so epic, it was destined for greatness. Behold, the bona fide internet sensation and winner of the people's vote, the roll golf.
Pretty brilliant engineering feat there. Not in its complexity, but just the fact that someone came up with the idea to do it.
Well, this is our roll golf. This Volkswagen Golf, and I bought it for 25 euros. It was an automatic car and it was not fun to drive it. When I bought it, I never thought about rolling it. Then one day I had nothing to do and I took the angle grinder and we took a piece out and we shortened it. And also, we lowered the suspension, as you can see. And then we thought, if you drive faster, maybe we can do an entire roll, and therefore we put roll bars on it.
So how is Milo literally taking this car for a spin?
What these guys have done is what you normally don't want to do in a car. They've raised the center of gravity, making it more unstable, so now you can actually execute a roll. If it was low to the ground, then it wouldn't execute the roll because the center of gravity is too low.
But the road to success isn't always smooth.
As soon as it turns upside down, the engine would stall. And we modified it with a liquefied petrol gas engine, because when it's upside down, it keeps on running. Each time when the car does a roll, it slams real hard on the street. Oh yes, the drive shaft is broken.
Well, we already had the world's coolest car, but by crowning him #1 in our viewers' vote, look how happy you've made him. And so ends The People's Vote, an episode dedicated to the clips that blew you away.
I'm sort of speechless.
It's incredible. It's a real emotional roller coaster.
Here at Outrageous Acts of Science, we are proud to celebrate the people behind the clips. From the funny to the frightening, the awesome to the outrageous.
I love it.
And the brilliant to the bizarre.
We're naked.
So to all those heroes, lab rats, hackers, and carnage makers who've come together from across the internet, in the name of science, we salute you.
Awesome.
And remember, until next time, don't try any of this at home.
Nice job.